let's jump into our math. We're going to work on 3-digit subtraction. Do you remember our little chart where we have the hundreds, tens, the hundreds place, the tens place, and the ones place? You can draw this chart on a blank piece of paper if that helps you to follow along. Or just you'll notice that on your worksheet, they use this to help you keep track of what you're doing. All right? Let's talk about what you would do. What you do when you subtract 3-digit numbers. You always start in the ones place, correct? Let's look at this problem. 735 minus 219. Okay, that's the first problem they give us to work on in the textbook. And I want you to notice, because we know we always start in the ones place, this is asking us to take 9 away from 5, right? And we know you can't do that. Let's look at it if we pictured this number, okay? Let's picture it. 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, 600, 700. And 1 10. Oh wait, 2 10s, 3 10s, and 5 1s. Okay? When they want us to take, this subtraction problem calls for taking 9 away from the ones, you can tell that's not possible. So what we're going to do is rename one of these 10s as 1s. Let's put it over here. In the book, they make it look differently, but we'll just put it over here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now, can we take 9 away from that? We can. We can take away 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, and then we can go, how many 10s do we take away? We take away 1 10. And how many hundreds do we take away? Take away this. So you can do it by picturing it, right? And what is left is your answer. When you do it in the equation right here, and you can't take the 9 away from the 5, it's like you go next door. Go to the 10s, and you're going to take one of them away. So this is 2 now. Take that 1 that you brought and put it right here. Now this is 15 minus 9, which you can do. And you find that your answer is 6. And 2 minus 1 is 1. And 7 minus 2 is 5. Okay, so it's 2 different ways to find that answer. And what we can call this is renaming. We're taking one of these 10s and renaming it back over here into the 1s, okay? So you remember we've done this before, also called renaming, when we added together, but this is the way to do it for subtraction. Okay, let's look at your worksheet together and do a few of the problems. Your worksheet is page 211, and it's a combination of ones that you're going to picture and word problems, right? So they want you to start out picturing them, solving it with using the pictures, okay? So I'll write the way that your worksheet has. 197 minus 68 equals. And here they have the chart drawn, okay? So how many hundreds? We'll put it right here. 100. 9 10s, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and how many ones? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right. Now, to solve this problem, they want 8 to be taken away from 7, which you can't do, right? So let's take one of these, borrow it, or rename it over here into the ones. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now we can take away 8, can't we? And then we'll take away from the tens place 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And we have an answer. Okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And 2 and 1. All right? So this is number 1 on your worksheet. Let's also do number 3 to practice another way to solve one together. This one they write as a problem that's lined up like this. This is how you'll most often be doing it like this. 234 minus 128. And they have drawn a picture of it too to the side so that you can work with the picture as well to really understand what's happening. And they've also lined it up in columns this way. This is another way to solve 3-digit subtraction. And this is the way that you'll most commonly do it. Okay? When you see here in the ones column and it says 4 minus 8, you can't take 8 away from 4. Sometimes it helps to just stop. You won't always need to rename, but sometimes you need to rename. And if you just look at something and think, well, can I take 8 away from that? You can't. Then you know you need to rename, okay? So let's go here to the tens place. We'll take 1 from here, which makes that 2. We'll put that one right here. Now 14 minus 8 we can solve, right? 14 minus 8 is 6. And then we go to the tens. 2 minus 2 is 0, and 2 minus 1 is 1. And here's our answer. It's always very important that we carefully line up our numbers, start in the ones place, and then go from there. Okay, so that's number 3. And then the other kind of problems that you'll have on your worksheet are word problems. Let me read this one to you. This is number 4. It says, Matt counted 273 bikes in the city. 159 bikes were parked. How many bikes were not parked? All right, let's take those numbers and make a math problem out of them. 273 minus 100. Oops. Minus, fix that. 159. We can't take 9 away from 3, so we'll come here to the tens and rename that over here. 13 minus 9, you know that, don't you, is 4. 6 minus 5 is 1, and 2 minus 1 is 1. So you can find the solution to that word problem. 114 bikes were not parked. At the end of that worksheet on the back, you're going to have a chance to practice your counting by 3s and 4s, which we've been practicing in our live classes, haven't we? I find it helps me to sing a little tune to remember the 3s and 4s. It might help you too. I'll sing it once on the video. Maybe that'll help you when you come to the time to do your work. And I would encourage you to practice your 3s and 4s doing something else. Maybe you're bouncing a ball or writing it down to help you remember it, or even playing with the scarf like we've done in our class time. The 3s song goes 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24, 27, 30, and we're done. Right? And then there's a 4 song too. 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, 28, 32, 36, 40, 44, 48. Singing 4s is really great. I hope those songs help you. They've always helped me to remember if I need to count by 4s really quick. Right? Good luck on your math sheet. Today we're going to work on science again. We're reading the chapter in our science book about matter and the different ways that matter changes. So you've done some reading about it and one worksheet that helped you remember what matter is, what mass is, the different states of matter. The next section of your workbook or your textbook that I want you to read is pages 152 to 157. This details different ways that matter changes. Right? You're going to learn important words like melts, freezes, solid, condenses. Okay, important words like water vapor, liquid. All right, I want you to read it, pay attention to those special words, those important words and those details. And when you've completed reading this portion of your textbook, I would like you to get out worksheet number 127. It's a crossword puzzle. I know you guys really enjoy those, and I want you to use your textbook to help you find all of those answers, all right? So I don't want you to just make a guess. I would rather you ask the textbook your questions and help you really put the answers in your mind to know the meaning of those words and to answer that crossword. At the back of that worksheet is blank, and so on the back of it, I think it would be fun if you drew me a picture of one of the ways you think is the most interesting that matter changes. Okay, so maybe that means you would want to draw a picture of something boiling and the steam going up, or the way the rain falls down and then it also can evaporate up when the sun comes out. Or maybe you'd like to draw a picture of an ice cream cone that's melting, okay? Why don't you think about the different ways that you'll read in this chapter that matter can change, and I would like you to draw me a picture of one of the ways you think is most interesting. In English, we have been talking about adjectives. Adjectives are words that describe nouns. They can tell us what kind, they can tell us how many. Adjectives can also be words that compare. Okay, so let's look at these brilliantly drawn creatures. These are snakes, okay? We can compare these snakes, all right? We could use adjectives to describe them simply by saying there are 3 snakes, right? We could use adjectives to describe them by saying they're creepy snakes, if we wanted to say what kind of snake's creepy, or maybe you think they're cute. I don't know. We could describe them by their color. We can also use adjectives to describe them and compare them, okay? When we look at these snakes, we could say the black snake is longer than the purple snake, right? Longer. That's one adjective that compares. Longer. Oh, that doesn't show up. I'll write it here. Longer. But if we were going to talk about the snake that is the most long, we would say the green snake is the longest of all 3. Longest. That's another adjective that can compare. All right. So in your worksheet today, which is page 239 and 240, you're going to work on finding the adjectives that compare. And notice, one thing that you're going to want to notice is that the ER ending is oftentimes used when you're comparing 2 things. Which one is something bigger, taller, smaller, when you're comparing 2 things. But when you have something that ends in an EST, that's when you're describing 3 or more things, right? So you could do adjectives that can compare. These, in this case, we were comparing snakes, but what about a sentence like, Andrew is taller than Dave? Which is the adjective? What is the adjective that's comparing? It's taller. And taller, it's comparing between 2 people, Andrew and Dave. So there's 2 nouns in that case, right? And when we're describing these, we're describing the snakes, and just the noun snake. If you were writing a sentence that used more than one noun, like this one, Andrew is taller than Dave. We have a capital letter and an end mark, right? Well, these are the nouns that are being compared. Noun, person, place, or thing. Andrew, Dave, and taller is your adjective. All right, so in your worksheet, you're going to be reading a lot of different sentences that have comparing adjectives in them, and you're going to put a square around your adjective. Then you're going to notice what kind of adjective it is. Is it a how many adjective, or a what kind adjective, or a comparing adjective? You also get to make up your own comparing adjective about us, or a comparing sentence that describes a snake. I look forward to seeing what you come up with for that. Now we're going to do our reading together. We get to finish this story that we've been reading about Jonathan and his treasure. It's a historical fiction about Jonathan Goforth, and we have talked about what was Jonathan's treasure. It was the 5 pennies, right? And he's been trying to decide what to do about it, what to do with those pennies. He could do anything he wanted with them. And he has really wondered about what he could do with it. He was imagining all the different candy he could buy with 5 pennies. And then he decided to pray about it. He felt confused. He wasn't sure what he should do, because he also knew a special offering was being taken at church for people who were going to another country to share about Jesus. And he felt like, should he give his money to that? Oh, but candy is so tasty, and what should he do? Okay, so that's where the story has been, and he decided, he prayed, and he felt peace, and God helped him. All right, well, let's open to the story. We'll read it together. Our vocabulary words that we're going to come across in this next section is chattered, and milk pails. Okay, chattered is like talking, but quickly and happily. Chattered. For example, the children chattered to one another about tomorrow's coming party. Right? And milk pails, that's something maybe sort of old-fashioned, because this is a story set in a long time ago. Milk pails. The farmer carried the milk pails from the barn to the house. So the pails for collecting milk, the little buckets for collecting milk. Okay, so Jonathan, where we left off, had prayed. He had decided he would use his 5 pennies to give to the offering for the missionaries. And then he's gone to sleep with peace in his heart. Okay, well, now let's start in our story on page 104. This section of the story is called The Offering Basket. The next morning, the sunshine woke Jonathan. He jumped out of bed and ran to the window. The milk pails rattled as his brothers did their chores in the barn. He dressed quickly and he ran to join them. He had to hurry to finish his chores. He was the last one to slide into his place at the table. "You're a little late today," Father said. "Yes, sir. I slept late," Jonathan said. As Jonathan was dressing for church, he saw the 5 pennies on his bedside table. He picked them up and he put them in his pocket. He wanted to give the pennies to the missionaries, but he began to think about that candy again, and he could almost taste the candy that he wanted. "Jonathan," called his father. Jonathan stuffed the pennies into his pocket as he ran outside. His brothers grabbed Jonathan's arms and lifted him into the wagon. Then the wagon pulled away from the house and headed toward the church. Jonathan held on tightly to keep from falling out. His family chattered happily, but Jonathan kept silent. He was thinking. When they arrived at church, Jonathan was the last one to get out of the wagon. He waited until the rest of his brothers walked inside. Then he went in behind them. While everyone else sang, Jonathan thought some more about the pennies. He thought, and he thought, and then he knew what he would do. Turn the page. The time came to pass the offering basket. Jonathan could hear the clink after clink as people dropped in their offerings. When the basket reached his bench, he watched it pass from brother to brother. Everyone had brought something to give. When the basket reached Jonathan, he opened his hand and he dropped in the 5 pennies. Jonathan grinned as he passed the offering basket. He felt happier than if he had a whole store full of candy. His heart wasn't hurting anymore. Okay, so what did we say Jonathan's treasure was at the beginning of the story? We said it was those 5 pennies, right? The second part of the story, the title of that part of the story is called The Battle. Why do you think they named it that? Right? There's not like fighting scenes or anything. I think they want you to think about that in that section. He was having to fight with what he was thinking and what he wanted and what did maybe he think was the right thing to do. But I think that's interesting because it makes you think, is it wrong to buy candy with your money? No, it's not wrong. It might, it's not wrong. It just is a decision for one point in time. But for Jonathan, because he knew that offering was coming the next day, I think he realized that for him, he had to make the best decision. And I'm so glad this story talks about that Jonathan prayed, because like I've told you before, you can come to God with all of your wondering, your questions, your thinking, your feelings, and he cares about all of that. He wants to help you. So I like how the story ends about how happy his heart was. God helped him, and Jonathan felt like he made the best decision, didn't he? Now we get to go on to read more information about Jonathan Goforth, because remember I told you he's a real person from history. And so our next section of reading is actually biography about him. Some true, accurate information about his life. Biography is when we're studying the story of someone's life. Okay, so that'll be interesting after we've gotten to read this little bit about his childhood. Now, your worksheet page is number 303 and 304, and it asks you questions from the whole story. These are comprehension questions that might go all the way back to the beginning of the story. You may use your reading book to find your answers. I want you to try to answer each one of these. There's 4 questions here. I would like you to use a complete sentence to answer the questions. So I want you to remember, for it to be a sentence, it needs a capital letter and it needs an end mark. It needs to make complete sense. Okay, so check your details when you're answering these questions. On the back, there's just a little bit about find the thing that doesn't belong. And then there are an opportunity for you to use some of those new vocabulary words that we used to fill in the blanks in the sentence.